Nerd Library, absolutely autonomous education. Concerning instruction, we are your one-stop shop. Meet your tech-savvy team of technocrats, astute entrepreneurs, and above all, passionate academics. We are education specialists, rendering learning solutions to schools, corporates, and governments, such as a broad spectrum of digital learning environments, live classes, online libraries, and innovation centers. We believe the indispensability or pervasiveness of technology is an opportunity and reading challenge as a thing of the past, in other words, obsolete. Our motivation is the African challenge and the need for a paradigm shift. Our focus areas: number 1, curriculum. How well suited is the curriculum to meet industry skill demands? Number 2, delivery. Reading seemingly is a handicap. How well adjusted is the content to fit the target audience? There's always a way for a fish to willingly take the bait. Our identity. We trade by the name Nerd Library, owing to the inclination that given the right tools for the trade, everyone is a geek. We are the bridge between students and teachers. Our role is complementary. Our services include training teachers ICT skills and how to incorporate them in education, content provision, question papers, detailed answers, syllabi, checklists, subject content, instructional design for learning, digitizing content, do-it-yourself kits, vocational training. This is our vision. And this is our mission.
Hello, this is Zina Zerebwa from Nerd Library, and what we do is absolutely autonomous education. Sure, we are Nerd Library. We curate and we grind. Maybe you might be wondering what that is all about. I'm reading the news. Something is going on in my mind. I got an issue. It's really sticky. Okay, guys, I got a question that I want to throw at you. What do you understand by a sticky issue?
Something that is sticking to your mind.
Sticky issue. Avoid the usage of the same word in explanation. What do you understand by sticky?
Something that is lingering in your brain for too long.
Yeah, exactly. Sticky issue. So what we endeavor to do this afternoon is a presentation on how to study. So what I'm going to do basically is this segment is the whole episode is divided into 3 segments. I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation on how to study, simply reading out the points, and then the second segment of it is the demonstration of the points that we'll have learnt about, and then the last segment is going to get into the crux of the story, which is what we are all about. We said autonomous education, and autonomous means you have to, it's a situation whereby an individual gets to learn something, gets to learn concepts by themselves on their own. We're running away from the burden of having to spoon feed people. You can learn at your own pace, at your own time, at your convenience, anytime, through the use of what is known as instructional design. So today what we endeavor to do is to learn what instructional design is as far as education is concerned. And why are we doing that? Maybe I'll just do a rundown of what we're going to be learning today. We do, instructional design is important in the sense that you realize that if you look at how we comprehend things, when you get a certain piece of information, it is stored in your brain in a form of a picture. That is why sometimes when you think of something, a picture comes into your mind. So we believe that as far as retention is concerned, you need pictures, you need motion, you need graphics that will help you to recall. And some of us, if we look at our results right now, it's a clear evidence that the issue of retention is really an issue. The aspect of retention is really an issue, because maybe we're given an examination and what you got was an interesting mark, which is what we're going to learn. Is it a matter of ignorance? Is it a matter of some other aspects? That is what we endeavor to learn in our presentation today. So here we are. Net Library is an edutech company. That is what we are about. And as you can see, what we are dealing with right now on how to study, we are offering to you what is known as study techniques, and we are buttressing on the issue of the craft of conceptualization, because in every topic that you are given, in order to pass with flying colors, in order to excel, what you need is a proper base as far as the concept of that subject is concerned. So this is what we're going to be delving into. You realize that generally all students, they study, but it is not about studying. Effectiveness is what we measure. What is effective study? Curate. Like I said, Net Library is all about curate, asking questions, getting deeper, getting to the bottom of things. Curate, surely there should be more way. On the other hand, it is one thing to study a subject effectively, and completely another to be able to answer the questions precisely. Why do students fail? It's a question that I'm throwing to us. Why do you think students fail? What is the reason behind the failure? Why do students fail?
I think they fail because they don't read that much and study that much.
They fail because they don't study. That's his opinion. What's the other opinion? Why is the reason behind failure? Number one cause of failure. Yes, please.
Okay. I would say some students will fail because of slow thinking. So like some will take time meditating on a certain question, then they would think later.
Okay. Why do people fail?
I would like to also assume that it's failure to arrange your time. The way you've designed your time in terms of how you read what you want to be examined for. Because you might have the data, but you don't know how to read it, how you can read it. As in, you have the books to read, but you don't know the right approach in how to read them. You don't have a plan in how to read them. As a man, study skill, how to study. You don't know how to study. You just grab a book. If you're doing many subjects, you just grab a book and you start reading. There is a lack of relation in the way you are studying. That's my assumption.
Okay, back to our presentation. I thought some of us were simply going to just look at the questions that are on the presentation. The question is, are they dull? Is failure really tied to the issue of dullness? Can we really conclude that they are dull people? We shall get to know about that. The reason as to why people fail is the answer to that question. How was content delivered to them? This is what we want to look into. How was the content delivered to them? That is the major aspect. That is the major reason behind the failure. because you realize that there's a person who can actually plan well, there's a person who can actually read a lot, there's a person who can plan a lot, but everything has got to do with content delivery. How was the content delivered to them? That is the reason behind failure. This is the answer now. No one is dull but deficient in skill. Practice makes perfect. Skills are caught as one repeats the process. So this is what we want to do. Because we believe as net library, there's no one who was born down. There's nobody who cannot grasp a concept. But how our memory is oriented is different. It differs from a person to person. Your cup of coffee might be poisonous to me. So you have to know how your memory is oriented. But the major reason has got to do with the issue of your content delivery. How was the content delivered to you? Now, the most important thing is you are supposed to aim to please the examiner, and you want to know how we can please our examiner. Because at the end of the day, when you have learned all there is to learn, there is an examination to be promoted to the other level. So your aim, your target at the end of the day is about coming up with skilling that will help you to please the examiner. These are the 3 parameters that we are going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about the application of what you were taught, because we were taught things. We can be taught about photosynthesis, but you realize that when a question is presented to you, it might not come asking you definitions or something like that. It comes in a way that is sort of encapsulated, but the whole idea behind the question is testing. Did you grasp the concept so that you can apply? You are given a certain scenario, and what they want for you to do is to apply what you have learned from the concept. So we're talking about application. Now what we need to understand is how do we study precisely, because we've said that we realize that every person is studying, but how you understand, how you are able to retain things for the sake of retention has got a lot to do with the way you study. The first part of call for a student is to stick to have an intricate, comprehensive understanding of the concepts. The following are the possible ways for you to build up a database around this end. You're supposed to do what is, the first thing that you're supposed to do as far as studying is concerned is to know the art of brainstorming. What do you understand from the word brainstorming? Yeah? Who else wants to give it a shot? The art of brainstorming. That's where the issue of sticky notes come into play. The art of brainstorming. What do you understand by that? Brainstorming, how do you do that? Okay, let's go. There are the answers I thought we were simply going to read so that we make this comprehensive. How do you brainstorm? How do you do brainstorming? Identify keywords in a subject in question. Your keywords, they act as a framework, the skeleton that will give you the support to your comprehension. Know how do you carry. Okay, fine. So we're still on page number 1. Let's talk about, for instance, we're talking about photosynthesis, right? I want for us to pay attention. Brainstorming, what are the keywords as far as photosynthesis is concerned? Yes, there we are. What else? Water. Carbon dioxide. Okay. What are the keywords? The way you brainstorm, what do you think is the keyword as far as the subject photosynthesis is concerned?
Leaves.
Okay, people are not just saying things in general. I think this is the way I would say the art of brainstorming. I would go back to the definition, and then I would come up with such words like autotrophs. I would come up with such words such as heterotrophs. Then I would come up with such words as producer. I'd come up with such words such as consumers. I'd come up with such words such as keywords as far as photosynthesis is concerned. I would think of transport. I am brainstorming because they've spoken of water. So if you are talking of water, it's supposed to be what? It's supposed to be transported. I would think in terms of what do you call it? I would think in terms of nutrition. And this nutrition, as you can see, then I start making a web of the interconnectedness of the concept that you are studying. Nutrients linked to the issue of transport. And then what else would I think of? Because I've spoken of autotrophs, that is your producer. I'm talking about heterotrophs, that is your consumer. What else would you think in terms of photosynthesis? What is it closely related to? Another topic linked to photosynthesis, what is it? Then I would think of respiration. You are brainstorming. Right now what you are doing is the art of brainstorming. And once you start doing these things, you are coming up with concepts. Then what would I do next? What is the other thing that I'm going to do? We're talking of photosynthesis, and there's no way you can brainstorm or remember and pass well without knowing the equations of photosynthesis. Okay, levels are different. For some of us who are doing biology, some of us are doing integrated science, but at the end of the day, it boils up to one thing. So I'll think of, I did biology, so I'll think of photosynthesis, then I'll think of, these are key things, and we're talking about key things. I'll think of what are known as raw materials. This is how you brainstorm. For photosynthesis to happen, I need a raw material. Then I would move on to the next thing. When a raw material, I'll think of the process, right? The processing that happens. Then I write process. Then, after the process happens, what is useful to us? We call it the what? That is useful to the organism carrying out the process. What is it called? It is called a product. And what is the worst to the organism in question is what is known as what? Byproducts. For now, let's hold it. Let's continue. This is the concept of brainstorming. And now, we are all about teaching you the skills that you need in order to get the desired goal at the end of the day. You don't have a board. I am doing a presentation. I am a teacher. I use a board. What do you use for your brainstorming? These things are at your disposal. These things known as your sticky notes or whatever, they are not expensive. You just write down things, and then from time to time you'll be asking yourself questions like, okay, fine, as far as the producer is concerned, what does it do? How does it affect photosynthesis? As far as the consumer is concerned, what relationship does it have with photosynthesis? And the other thing that you have to know, like when you are learning a subject, what you are dealing with, when you look at a person, a living person, a living organism, are made up of different components, different systems that are working together. So there's no way you can talk about a certain topic which is not interconnected to the other topic. So what you have to do as a student, every time you are learning about a certain topic, find out how it is connected to the preceding what topic. There's always a connection, and when you have got all the loose ends joined together, what you have at the end of the day is a working organism. You have got a solid understanding of what life sciences are all about, what biology is all about, whatever it is that you are learning, because this is not only limited to science, it's even about maths, it applies the same things. You need to know the art of what? Brainstorming. And then we're moving on to the second point as far as how to study is concerned. You need to know the art of writing notes. Maybe we think Some of us actually think, where would we, is it really something to write home about, writing notes? But the reason as to why some people are failing has got to do with the way that they are capturing their notes. It says a lot as far as your understanding is concerned, as far as your ability to recall is also concerned. So there's a question that is on the presentation, and you are asking, how do you carry out that? The first thing that you're supposed to do as a student, as a rule of thumb, always jot down the notes of your teacher. It doesn't matter you like the teacher. It doesn't matter the teacher is got an accent that you don't like. Whatever it is about the teacher, don't develop an attitude towards the teacher. Because the moment you've got an attitude towards your teacher, you've planned on failing. If you hate your teacher, you've already planned on failing. That is how people fail some subjects. They just don't like the teacher who's teaching it. At the end of the day, they develop an attitude towards the teacher. So the teacher is your captain, and that's it. So follow everything that your teacher is saying. If they say write the notes, just write the notes. Don't bunk lessons, be there. And then the next thing that is important, you are supposed to make your own notes. Maybe you're asking questions. How do I make my own notes? This is what I used to do when I was still at your level. And I'm still a student. I'm still doing it up to now. And it's working for me. And I know it will work for you. What you have to do is you go back to your teacher's notes. You read them. But many times, this is what will happen. There's a higher possibility that sometimes when you are reading through the notes, they're not making any sense, especially when the teacher was just reading out a textbook and giving you notes. There are some teachers who do that. But how do you get to understand? This is what I have learned as a student. What you need to do is you identify in your group, in your class, someone who is brilliant at a certain subject. Befriend them, go to them, ask questions. Okay, what is it that you are talking about here? Seek an understanding of all the things that they are teaching you. Then after you have understood, even before you understand, take other textbooks, take other sources. Don't make your teacher your chief source of information. Because what he gives you, your teacher will only give you 5% to make you pass. 95% usually of the material that you need in order to excel is something that you are going to do as a student. That is why we are pushing for this issue of autonomous education. You can make it once you've got things like syllabuses. Once you go sit and listen to your teacher, you have what it takes to do the work, right? So the next thing that you do, through the use of whatever, internet, books, there are so many sources where you can glean wisdom from. Then the thing that you will do is you make your own notes. Then the final thing that you are going to do, you are having the notes from your teacher. You're also having your personal notes. At the end of the day, what you need to do is to compare and to contrast your own notes with that of your teacher, and then prepare one final draft. What is that one final draft? When I was still a student, referring to A-level and O-level, we used to call it a CD. I don't know what you call it right now. It was a notes. It was some rough book, or just a nice book with all the topics, something that you have internalized, something that you know, something that you have written on your own, because you understand you are your best teacher. The notes that you make by yourself, they make sense better than the notes that you got from someone else. Know the art of making notes. It will get you the grades that you want. Number 3, know the art of e-learning aids. This is very important. This is what we push for. Know the art of e-learning aids. What are we talking about? You see, there are so many things at our disposal. This is the age of technology. It's indispensable. We can't talk of doing anything without the aid of technology. That is how it is. We talk of the proliferation of the things like mobile devices. There's no way you can say that I don't have access to something that will help me to remember. Like most of the times when you get gadgets such as phones, most of us what we think is maybe I want to go on social media and be posting some things, doing WhatsApp, but there's a lot that you can do with your mobile device. On your mobile device, there is you can download a lot of applications that can help you with the content that you need, and the content is for free and it's relevant. It will help you to beef up your knowledge base. And also the other thing is, what you are pushing for at the end of the day is, maybe you may read a lot of things, but how our memory is oriented differs from person to person. You realize that maybe you've got challenges as far as retention is concerned. How do you bridge, how do you find ways of leveraging technology so as to help you with whatever is available, so that at the end of the day you beef up your retention skills? This is what you do. On your phone, it doesn't matter, it's a Mbudzi or whatever phone, there's what is known as a voice recorder. So this is what you do, especially when you're not doing maths, because maths is different. There are no two ways about it. Maths, you just have to work. Yes, you've got to, which I'll get to know how you can handle mathematics. But as it is, if you are doing other subjects involving content and stuff like that, what you need to do is record yourself. Be your own teacher, defining things. Read out your notes, record them. When you are tired, put on your earphones, play over and over and over and over again, because this is what normally happens. When you have played something over and over in your mind, it's cemented, it's stored there. Sometimes when you are in the exam room, there's a certain question that is presented. You hear an echo of those things that you have been what, and that is how you help yourself. That is how you orient your mind towards retention, because those who pass are those who remember. You know that. The reason as to why some people fail, actually the reason as to why people fail is they don't remember. You fail because you don't remember. So e-learning aids will help you to remember at the end of the day. And the other thing is, let me just read off from what is there on the slide. Make use of your phone to record your own lessons. Record yourself as your own instructor. Play it over and over again until you have mastered a concept. Take a further step and look for recorded videos on your topic of interest. In most cases, such material is replete of case studies that will sharpen your appreciation of the concept. Never start without a syllabus. Your syllabus is indeed your compass. Most students, it's okay, fine, that the other thing that we look into, the key number 4 on how to study, is the issue of diagramming it up. And before I get to explain and expound on what it is, you realize that the challenge that we have, especially this part of the world known as Africa, English is not vernacular. English is a borrowed language. Unfortunately, like especially here in Zimbabwe, English is the language of instruction. You realize that most of us, we have got a challenge as far as expressing ourselves in English is concerned. So you realize that you understand what photosynthesis is, but the problem is you don't have the right vocab to back up your understanding. So you end up writing wrong things because you don't know how to convey the message in English. So how do you bridge that handicap? How do you deal with such a challenge? In most cases, that if you open most textbooks, I've got a booklet that I prepared here. I'm just gonna be opening it for you like this, rushing through. You'll see that it's full of diagrams. Why is it like that? Diagrams are not just there for a show. If there's a certain question, it's a structured question. Take your time to understand the diagrams that come up with the content, and then internalize them, draw them out. Let's say you're dealing with a subject such as all science subject. Actually, I know, especially geography. You realize that they're talking about tectonic plates, or talking about climate. All you need to do is to master what happens when two continents collide, or an oceanic plate and a continental plate is colliding. And now the problem is, most of us are limited as far as the vocabulary of English is concerned. So what you need to do is to master the diagrams, and I just want to show you briefly. What I mean by diagram it up before we carry on. I want for you to check out the content that we made as Net Library. This is chemistry content. Here we go. As you can see, this is look at most of this, the content that we developed. It is animated. What do I mean by that? There are a lot of pictures and explanations. Look at this. I know that some of this might be Greek to some of us, so I'll spare us the details and just show you what you're supposed to work towards. More diagrams, content, less content, more diagrams. This whole document is just animated of pictures. And I'll get to explain why it is important to do that. And then the one that I really wanted to show you is the one that refers to geography. This is a geographer item. Okay, fine. We are talking about the divergence of two places and what happens. I hope I'll get a question. This diagram that you see right there is something that I drew. I drew it. This was not computer aided. I drew it with my hands. Let me show you the other one. You see this diagram right there? I drew it with my own hands. This is not a computer. I did it. This is not a computer. Diagram it up. You can't run away from the issue of diagrams. Actually, if you want to score an A, especially when it comes to this specific subject called geography, you should make sure that your skills as far as drawing. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. Diagram it up. We're talking about diagram it up. Why is it important to focus on that? You realize that, like what we've alluded to earlier on, the challenge that most of us have is the handicap of English. But some people may actually think that they know English until they have to write it. Lingo, street lingo is different from English. Formal English is not street lingo. And sometimes it will surprise most of us to realize that most of the people that we think they speak really good English are people who actually fail English at the end of the day, because what they are used to is not English but what is known as street lingo. So how do you deal with such challenges? That is where we come to our point number 4, the issue of diagram it up. And why is it important? You realize that as we get towards the end of our presentation, you realize that the aim that you're supposed to have as the student is always to please the examiner. And how do you do that? You are supposed to, your English is supposed to be on point, your handwriting is supposed to be legible. You're not supposed to be some spaghetti that is difficult to follow through. So I'm just going to read out what is written there. Most students, especially from this part of the world, find English as a language not so user-friendly. Well-labeled diagrams can save you from the trouble. Just a little bit of explanation will have to accompany the diagram. It also saves the marker the trouble of trying to figure out your hieroglyphics, whatever. I hope I managed to pronounce it well. And now, the most important point as far as how to start is concerned is the issue of always ask yourself the question why. Okay, before we get further with this topic number, point number 5, why is it important to ask the question why? Why is it important to ask the question why?
So that you know the reason.
So that you know the reason. Okay, and before we go any further, I have another question that I'll throw at you again. Why is it that you realize that toddlers, they're always asking the question why? Like if you're like, why are you going to the toilet? You give them the answer. The next answer is why. And when you give them an answer, the next question is why? Why do you think they're always asking why?
Is it not because they learn more as they ask?
Exactly. That is the point. So you realize that the reason as to why most of us as students, we don't excel is we are dogmatic in nature. We are told that blah, 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 does this. And you don't ask the question why. So at the end of the day, the caliber of a student that you are is a student who is dogmatic, or is that type of a student who passes by cramming. And the danger of a person who passes through cramming and then recalling when questions are asked is when you are given questions that require for you to apply your knowledge, you cannot solve such questions. But if you get to know, okay, you are told that photosynthesis is a process whereby green plants make their what? Pollen. If you ask your question why, you get into, and that is how you are able at the end of the day to master the art of brainstorming. Because to brainstorm is to ask yourself, to bombard yourself with questions. You need to keep on bombarding yourself with questions. And the more you ask yourself questions, the more you build up your knowledge base. The more you build up your knowledge base, the more you are able to apply when a different scenario is given from what you knew previously. And then I'm just going to read what is on the slide. Average students are dogmatic in nature. They stick to the cram and pass syndrome. Exceptional students curate when given an established fact, such as the higher you go, the cooler it becomes, referring to altitude. An exceptional student will seek to establish why it is so. In this booklet, you shall be encountering a lot of curate moments, asking why it is resourceful, technique towards concept and application, accusation. And now the last point as far as how to study is concerned is number 6, which is very key. Because when we have studied, at the end of the day, are going to be examined. And how we are going to fare as far as this process is concerned has got a lot to do with your ability to pay attention to command words. Okay, what are command words? What are command words?
Words which require you to do something.
Like what? For instance.
To describe it.
Okay, so here we go. I thought it was something that was open for public consumption. This is a presentation. I thought we were just going to be reading it off. Command words are things such as describe, compare, define, identify, list, state, and etc. You realize that most of the students, you are given a simple question, list the cities that are in Zimbabwe. And because you don't know the difference between the different command words. You go like when you get in Zimbabwe, you go to Harare, and then in Mashonaland West, there is a city that is called Goromonzi. Then you get what. Already, you are what? You are doing the wrong thing. You are supposed to know the differences between describe. What do I do if I have to describe? What do I do if I'm comparing? What do I do if I'm defining? What is to identify? What is to state? And what is to list? All those things you're supposed to master them as a student. And there are a lot of resources teaching us on how to be able to rightly distinguish the keywords. Now, having done this, we are through with this first segment of the presentation. English is universal. Unfortunately, some of us might not like it. It might not be comfortable to our palate, but fact still remains that English is the language of instruction. You have to master it. And sometimes you realize that the reason as to why someone who's sitting next to you is scoring better marks has got a lot with the way they're able to convey or they're able to express themselves in English. You might be having a good answer, but you don't know how to express yourself in English. So it doesn't matter whether you're not doing English or what, but it's something that is advisable for you to keep on building up your knowledge base as far as English is concerned. There are so many resources that you can use for this end, such as Student Companion. How many of us have got that book, Student Companion? Student Companion. There are so many tools that you need. You need I still remember back in the day, primary school, during primary school, my teacher drew something like this. For now, we'll assume that we are doing composition writing, and in the next 5 minutes we're supposed to be done. Okay, fine. What have you seen on the board? What is on the board?
It's a snake.
It's a snake.
Yeah.
What about the snake?
Yeah, it's going upward.
It's going upward.
Yes.
Critical thinking skills are interesting. You've just seen a snake which is going upward.
Yes, and it's white.
It's white. That's all you have to say. Okay, fine. Okay, here we go. I've added more detail to it. What do you appreciate from what I've just done?
It's water.
It's water. Okay, someone else. Yes? Whiter. Okay, fine. What I was doing is simply showing you the details pertaining a snake. The parts. This is a snake, but it's made of different parts, isn't it? And I thought I had spoken what we are dealing with. I said that we are dealing with composition writing right now. What we need to foster at the end of the day, we say that we have got 3 parameters that we are worried about. We are worried about the what? Application. We are worried about the concept. We are worried about the what? The case studies. So if you have mastered those things, it's very easy for you to apply what you are dealing. So we're talking about composition writing. And what I've just done to the snake that I drew on the board is adding detail to it. You realize that this is the head, right? And what we have here, and what you call it as far as composition writing is concerned, let's apply our knowledge. At one point in time, all of us did English composition writing. What is this? This thing, what is it called? As far as composition writing is called?
Yes, body.
This is the body. And what we have at the end is what?
The conclusion tail.
Yeah. You've got your tail, which is your what?
Conclusion.
Your conclusion. Okay, fine. I'm going to do some further animations to it, then I'll ask questions. Okay, what do you understand from what I have just done on the board? As far as composition writing is concerned, we said this is the head, and this is the body, and this is the conclusion. Maybe before we get to this part, why do we have so many compartments as far as the body is concerned? What are these things as far as composition writing is concerned? What is it called? You flow from what? What are they called? These are paragraphs. What makes up a body is what? Paragraphing. These are paragraphs. Okay, right. Here we are. And now, back to the crux of our bulletin. We are on our introduction, the head. What do you understand by that? What is that thing? Introduction. Okay. Here we go. It was on a sunny day. Then my mother sent me to buy some tomatoes. I ate the tomatoes and I was full. This is an introduction. What kind of an introduction is that? What have you done? Do you still have another story to tell? You have exhausted everything. Everything that you are telling us afterwards is pointless, right? We know that what you're writing about has got to do with your mother waking you up, then assigning you to do some whatever for her, and then at the end of the day, you ate something and you were full. Already your story is boring, right? So if you look at where we chose to use the snake to explain, to convey our message, has got to do with the detail that it has. If you look at the head of the snail, of your what do you call it, of your snake, there are parts such as your eyes, your ears, though we don't see them, your mouth, whatever, and your tongue, your whatever, those things. Why do we have so much detail in on your head? Composition writing, as far as it's concerned, what you're supposed to do is to create suspense, provoke me, catapult that desire within me to understand what you're talking about, right? If you write something that is watered down, before I even read your work, I'm already bored and I've written you off. So I'm no longer your audience at all. So the thing is, you are supposed to master writing proper introductions. So I'm just going to give you an example of what I did. I did today actually. If I did it today, you can also do it. understood anything from that?
No.
But what have I done?
If you are good the words.
What have I done?
If you-
What is that skill called in composition writing?
Suspense.
Yeah. I've already built up suspense. You want to understand, okay, what are the kind of forms? What was she talking about? What was she referring to? Who is the artful dodger? What is it that she's referring to as the what? As a kind of worms. Okay. As far as our English composition is concerned, we just have to 1 minute to capture that. How do you build up your vocabulary? It doesn't matter. I'm no longer I passed my English way back then, but up to now I'm still trying out some new words. I'm learning every time. I have to build up your vocabulary. How do you build up your vocabulary? This is what you're supposed to do. Read wide, watch documentaries, watch movies for the sake of learning new words. So you realize that right now I'm just thinking of something to animate my writing. Because you realize that teachers have got this headache of trying to get to understand some of the jargon that is used by students. You realize that someone is writing a composition, you encounter such interesting words such as I'll come and see you when my back is baked together. And another funny phrase that you can encounter is I was wanted to go to Harare, then they went and they were, you see, already it's got to do with the grammar, it's got to do with direct translation, and one that is actually funny is this statement that I once came across that's got to do with I couldn't do anything about it because the meats were standing with pots. That is direct translation. Someone is writing and they are serious. Like now we're laughing, but it's something that happens. Maybe if we were to do sort of a case study, I just give you a topic. Come on, guys, write a composition. Maybe I was going to get some similar phrases. Okay, different expressions, but yeah, you get what he said even when. So what you do before writing a composition, you need to come up with statements as a framework. You just think of any general statement. Sweat started oozing out profusely out of the pores of my skin. My eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Do not sit on the fence. Cut to the chest. Stop barking the wrong tree. At the end of the day, I was both emotionally exhausted and physically spent. So what you see, those are just general statements. It doesn't matter what kind of a composition. If it's a narrative composition, you can always throw them here and there, just depending on with the topic that you're writing. But someone like instead of saying she didn't even know what to do, you say, unfortunately, regarding a camp, they were seated on the fence. Sitting on the fence means someone is suffering from indecision. When you're saying you're supposed to cut to the chest, you're saying get to the point. So these are metaphors that you need in order to spice up, to spruce up your composition writing. The moment you do such things like this, the examiner already is what they give you special attention. This person knows what they are talking about. You become their favorite. And at the end of the day, you garner the maximum points that you need to pass right. So that's it as far as English. English subject is concerned, we move on to mathematics. And in 10 minutes we'll be done. The subject that I want to introduce to us is, we know it already, but remember we spoke about 3 parameters. The 3 parameters that we spoke about is the concept, mastering the concept, mastering application, and mastering case studies, right? So we also want to see how this affects mathematics, how we can apply it to maths. So let's say you've got such an equation. Okay, we got these expressions on the board, and we want to learn something about concepts, right? What is it? What are the 2 expressions about? What are they called? What kind of equations are they?
I think simultaneous.
Yeah, we are talking about simultaneous equations. And why are they called simultaneous equations? Why are they called simultaneous equations? Brainstorming. Why? Always ask the question why. Why is it called a simultaneous equation? Yes? I thought you were lifting up your hands. Why is it called a simultaneous equation?
Any 2 numbers.
2. Okay. Okay, she's saying that we've got 2 unknowns. Okay, fine. I can rub the other expression. Will this one still be a simultaneous equation? Simultaneous means it's occurring at the same time. You've got 2 expressions that are occurring at the same time. So in other words, what we mean, our variables, our unknown variables have got a relationship. The value of x in our expression 1 is the same value of x in our expression number what? Number 2. The value of y in expression number 1 is the same as the value of y in expression number 2. Simultaneous means they are happening at the same time. So the first thing that you need to do is to establish the concept. Simultaneous means it's happening at the same time. Then what you have to do, secondly, is to do what is known as a study of scenarios, especially as the maths subject is concerned. Maths is a science subject, and it is testing your critical thinking skills. Before we get there, we have managed to understand what the meaning of simultaneous is. The next thing that we are going to do is method. What method do we implement so as to solve simultaneous equations? What methods? We have defined what a simultaneous equation is. That is our concept. Now we need to know about the method. What method do we use to solve our simultaneous equations? Yes? There is the method of elimination. What is the other method for solving simultaneous equation? Sure? Substitution. Is there another one? Yes, there is. But for now, let's substitution. Okay, fine. For now, let's say that this is what you have done. And normally, this is what you do. sometimes a paper will specify that through the usage of the method of elimination, find the value of what x and y, but sometimes it doesn't. So as a student, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to be comfortable with all of this, because you don't know which method your examiner is going to require from you. So what is required of you is to master all the methods that can be implemented so as to tackle the problem at hand. But at the same time, the reason as to why the different methods that are implemented as far as solving a problem is concerned is in traversing. There's always something that you are comfortable with. You realize that when I want to go to South Africa, it's either I can go by Masvingo Road, I can go by the Botswana Road, but at the end of the day, I get to a place I want. But now this is what happens, because what you want to do at the end of the day is to pass. You realize that you are supposed to, usually the route that a person takes at the end of the day has got to do with costing, right?
Yes.
You are writing mathematics, and so many people fail the subject of mathematics because of the issue of time. You are not able to manage your time. You have taken a method that you don't really appreciate, something that you haven't really mastered. At the end of the day, it takes you a long time to solve a problem that you are supposed to solve in 2 minutes. So always try to ask yourself, be honest with yourself, which method have I mastered most? Okay, in cases whereby the examiner does not specify the method that you're supposed to implement, then just go by the method that you are comfortable with, right? Okay, having done that, for now, we'll assume that the method that we are comfortable with, what is known as what? Elimination. Okay, we are done. You have chosen the method that you are going with. The next thing that you are going to do now is to study the scenario. You have got this equation. You are studying the scenario. Why am I studying the scenario as far as solving my simultaneous equation is concerned? We are always asking the question, why? Because it helps us to understand better. Okay, I'm studying the scenario because what I want to do at the end of the day to identify what are known as constraints. Okay, fine. Under normal circumstances, let's say you are given equation 1 and 2. Which one would you prefer to solve? Let me say, okay, let me do this. This is equation 1. It's a different equation. This is number 1, right? And then on number 2, under normal circumstances, which equation would you choose to solve? 1 over x plus 4 is equals to 6, or the equation that goes by x minus 3 is equals to 4. Under normal circumstances, which, given a choice to solve one of the equations, which one would you go for first? 2, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I was expecting for people to say that. And this is what we are about to deal with. So the first thing that you would do when you're given simultaneous equations of this nature, what you're supposed to do is to identify constraints. And already from equation number 1 and equation number 2 of the simultaneous equation, we can see that we've got constraints as far as the first equation is what is concerned. So the next step now has got to do with managing the constraint. You want to do away with the constraint so that at the end of the day, you have got an avenue which is easier to traverse, right? So this is what we're going to do. The constraint here is that we have got an unknown found on the what? On our denominator, right? This is the numerator and this is the denominator. And usually, under normal circumstances, constraints that are found on the denominators are difficult to deal with. So what you are going to do, for this moment, you want to eliminate the constraint that is found in the first problem. So this is what you do. We want to make it our problem. Let's make it our numerator. So you're going to do the inverse of the expression of equation 1. So your next step, man, is to rearrange and doing away with the constraint, not totally, but trying to manage it. So this will go.
So what we are basically going to be doing under this section is, before we attempt on solving any problems, we need to get to know like the keywords that are under simultaneous equations. You will realize that as far as this topic is concerned, we shall be talking about words such as terms, expression, polynomial, and simultaneous equations, and we need to understand the definitions, because remember we said you need to be answering the question what before you even start solving. You have to know the what question. So the term is any distinct quantity that is contained in your polynomial, and speaking of which, your expression is a group of symbols that make up a mathematical statement, and polynomial is a mathematical function that is the sum of a number of terms. Simultaneous equations is a set of equations and two or more variables for which there are values that can satisfy all the equations simultaneously. So now what we then move on to steps, like basic steps on how to solve simultaneous equations, like sort of a guideline, sort of a blueprint on how to solve simultaneous equations when you encounter them. And I believe I'm of the opinion that these nuggets will be very handy. They come in handy if you practice. Like, you can't really cram everything, but if you always refer to the steps, it will help, it will aid you in understanding of what you're supposed to be doing. So you realize that step number 1, what you have to do is to study the problem given first, that is to determine what topic it falls under. And then step number 2 is that once you know the topic, you are supposed to go ahead and begin to study scenarios. And please, not always study the scenarios. In this case, the problems we have are simultaneous equations. And then point number 3 is you have to determine the method which can be used to solve the equations. And there are 2 methods that we can used to solve simultaneous equations, speaking of a substitution and also elimination. And we move on to point number 4. And point number 4, you are always supposed to check for constraints in your problem before attempting to solve them. Any constraint makes the traversal taxing. Remember, we want to remove these constraints, the difficulties, as quick as possible, for time is not on our side, because you realize that most students, they fail mathematics because they fail to finish. So you have to be wary pertaining how you get to use your time. And then the other thing that we need to understand is the things about denominator, numerators. And what a denominator is simply the divisor, that is the number by which a dividend is divided and of a fraction. And then numerator is the dividend, speaking of, that's a number to be divided by another number of a fraction. And then we move on to point number 5. Point number 5 says that whatever you do to the left hand side, you also should do to the right hand side. And please take note that this you do term by term. Remember, you are not setting a new question, you are simply simplifying the problem. Don't reset another question, just play around with your terms and make sure that at the end of the day there's nothing that you have changed, but you've only simplified the problem at hand. And then step number 6, which I believe is the second from last, is you're supposed to keep on studying the scenarios. The steps are iterative until you get to solve for the variables that are known. And then lastly, what you are supposed to do is you're always supposed to prove if your unknown variables that is your solution for x and y are correct. And how do you do so? How do you verify? How do you prove you do so when your left hand side is found to be identical to your right hand side? So what we're gonna be doing right now is we're going to be getting into the crux of the things, like really dealing with the problems that are already before us, and on the screen right there are two simultaneous equations, and I'm gonna explain the kind of headache that I had to process working through those things, because I had to be meticulous in my way. You realize that there's a 1 over 3x plus 4y. 1 over 4y is equals to 20, which is your equation number 1, and then there's 3x plus 2y is equals to 10, which is your equation number 2. So what we have to start off by doing is we'll start off by studying scenarios. As you can see, equation number 2 is easy to deal with because it has no constraint at all, but equation number 1 is different. It has got constraints, and what we need to do is to identify what the constraints are so that we get to deal with them, and then we realize that the constraints that we are facing there is that variables are found on the denominators. Variables are better to deal with when found on the numerators. Let us try and simplify the equation. Now what we need to note well, we need to pay particular attention to this thing. It matters a lot. It matters how you interpret mathematical expressions. Like I've got a confession to make. I had a hard time trying to solve that one due to interpretation issues. Follow the following closely. You realize that 1 over 3x, which can be interpreted as 1 divided by 3x, is totally different from 1/3 of x, and so is 1 over 4y totally different from quarter of y. And how is it different is what we seek to understand. You realize that the first term is like, that is 1 over 3x is like 1 divided by 3x, whilst the second one is 1/3 of x, and we will assume our equation is in this form. So I'm gonna try and rearrange our equation number 1 so that we'll be able to deal and dissect it. I think this one is easier. Then lastly, after having solved this one, we will try to look at a scenario whereby the equation is given as 1 over 3x plus 1 over 4y. So let's move on. So you will realize that the next step that we have to do is to analyze our scenarios, and this is what we are doing. So we are going to be solving this equation by elimination, and now the question is, how do you eliminate a variable? Eliminate, it means to do away. It's somewhat synonymous to subtraction. Either of the terms should cancel out, and at the end of the day, the coefficient of any of the values that we choose to eliminate should be the same. It's either you are eliminating your x or you are eliminating your y. You can't eliminate all these terms all at once, so you do that step by step. So given that you decide to solve by eliminating x, analyze the relationship between 1/3 and 3, and in this case you want to remain with 3. Think of a multiple of 3, speaking of which, when divided by 3, it will give you 3. The multiple of the multiple is 9. So what you do is you go ahead and multiply the whole expression by 9. On the other hand, if you want to eliminate y, first study the scenarios too. You have a quarter, and you also have a 2 as coefficients of y. The integer with a higher value here is 2. So you want to compute your problem such that you remain with 2 in place of a quarter. Think of a multiple which, when divided by 4, will also give you 2. In other words, we're saying that the multiple should be a product of 4 and 2, which is 8. Multiply the whole expression, that is equation number 1. Yes, we're still on that, by 8. Assuming that we choose to eliminate x, the following is what we are going to do. It means that we're going to be multiplying equation number 1 by 9. So this is what you do as shown on the board. You've got your 9 multiplying all the terms on equation 1. And then at the end of the day, what you have is 3x plus 9 over 4y is equals to 180 as your equation number 1. So what you then do is you have to go ahead and do your elimination right there. So as you can see, 180 minus 10, that gives you a minus 70. And please always remember to show your side working. But now we've got an interesting scenario under the coefficients of y, because we have a fraction and we have a whole number. So what we're gonna do is to do the separate working that is showing on the board. So what we do is we're saying that 9 over 4y minus 2y, of which, speaking of which, then you are finding the lowest common multiple of 4 and 1, which is 4, and at the end of the day what you have is 9 over 4y minus 8 over 4y, and your answer is a quarter y. So you go back, and what you have there at the end of the day is shown on is showing the full working, is that we have got a quarter y, which is equals to 170, and we need to make y the subject of the formula. So in other words, we're gonna be multiplying all the terms found on the lower left right hand side and also on the right hand side by 4, and that gives us our answer is 680 as shown. And then what we then do is we are gonna be substituting, for solving for the value of x, we substitute the value of y in equation 2. So we have got our 3x plus 2y is equals to 10, and now we know the value of our y, which stands out as 680. So in other words, the equation becomes 3x plus 2 times 680, which is equals to 10, and at the end of the day you realize that your solution for x is equals to 450, and then your solution for x is minus 450, and then y is equals to 680. And you know, as a general rule of thumb, you have to prove your working, you have to prove that what you did is correct, and to do so your left and right side is supposed to be equivalent to your right hand side. And so we are substituting the values into the equation as shown, and at the end of the day you can actually tell that your 10 is identical to 10. And like we said again, we're gonna be looking into different scenarios. Let's say that the problem was actually given in such a way as 1 over 3x plus 1 over 4y is equals to 20, and then as your equation number 1, and your equation number 2 is given as 3x plus 2y is equals to 10. So this kind of mathematical expression is interesting. To begin off with, we are faced with two challenges. The first challenge is that we have a fraction, and the second challenge that we have the unknown variables as denominators. That being said, we cannot rush off to use the method of elimination. There's some priming that is supposed to be done before finally eliminating any of the variables. And if you try to engage the previous method, you realize that as far as equation 1 is concerned, it cannot be cleared off of fractions. You just remain with fractions. So what then do you think we should do? And we are supposed to think outside of the box. So the next time you encounter such a problem, such as in equation number 1 is alluded to earlier on, remember to introduce logarithms so as to eliminate the problem. So step number 1, as far as solving of this kind of a problem is concerned, you introduce logarithms. And just to define what a logarithm is, that's the exponent required to produce a given number. So we are introducing logarithms on all the terms that are found on our equation. Our equation was 1 over 3x plus 1 over 4y is equals to 20, and now we are introducing logarithms on all the terms of the equation. And then at the end of the day, what we have is log 1 over 3x plus log 1 over 4y is equals to log 20 as our equation 1. And you should remember that during our previous segment, we touched on our topics within a given subject are interconnected. We also looked looked at the need to master concept of each given topic, and having observed that it gives an upper hand, culminating in that ability to introduce concept from a different topic to solve a problem under a given new topic. That's, for instance, using the problem above, we have introduced a logarithm into the simultaneous equation. In other words, you have to know what logarithms are, and in a nutshell, I will say that logarithms are a type of indexes, of powers and exponents. You have to then know the law of indices, or the law of logarithms, the law of exponents, to be able to be in a position to solve this kind of problem. And again, I'll give a definition of what an index is. That is a mathematical notation indicating the number of times a quantity is multiplied by itself, like saying 2 to the power 3, so that kind of a thing. So for the sake of solving this problem that we have at hand, you have to be cognizant of this law, that if you given a logarithm whereby it's log a over b, at the end of the day it's log a minus log b. If you have got a log a plus b, is log a times log b, that kind of a thing. So also you have to bear in mind that your log 1 is equals to 0, log 10 is equals to 1, and log 100 is equals to 2, because we're raising 10 to the power 2, that's 2, and then the 10 to the power 1, that's 1, and 10 to the power 0, giving you a 1. And so we move on with our working, and this is what we do on step number 2. We apply the laws to the problem. So at the end of the day, your log 1 over 3x plus log 1 over 4y is equals to log 20, translates into log y minus log 3x plus log 1 minus log 4y is equals to 20. So what we are gonna do here is analyzing of the scenarios once again. So step number 3, log 1 is we readily know it, so we can just go ahead and substitute the value into the equation, and log 1 is 0. So what we have at the end of the day on equation number 1 is log minus log 3x minus log 4y, which is equals to log number 20. And then we continue, like we said, is iterative, this process of having to analyze scenarios. What can be done? The log is common, it is found on both the left hand side and the right hand side, and it is found on its on all the terms. So in other words, what we do here, we're gonna introduce another concept here, which is factorization, which is another topic in your math syllabus. And then having done that, we realize that when factoring out minus log, we have got what we have at the end of the day is 3x plus 4y, which is equals to log 20. And then what you have to do again is to continue the analysis, analyze the current scenario. And to simplify this, we can do so by simply dropping out the common terms found on both the right side and the right hand side, and that common term is log. To drop divide by log, and to having divided by log here, what we end up with is minus bracket 3x plus 4y, which is equals to 20, and we need to simplify our matters. So in other words, we're simply going to reverse our signs. Then we have, because we're multiplying that, we have at the end of the day, what we have is 3x plus 4y is equals to minus 20. That becomes our equation 1, and what we need to do is to solve the simultaneous equation, and the method that we are going to be using is eliminating, as you can see on the board. And so after having worked out the problem, you realize that your 2y is equals to your y is equals to 50 minus 15. So having found the value of y, what you then do you have to substitute into the equation to find the value of y, and as shown on the working on the board, at the end of the day, the value of x, rather for the value of x, the value of x is 40/3. And as usual, once you get that kind of an answer, what you need to do is to go ahead and to prove that your left hand right side is equivalent to the right hand side. And then we are gonna do that using equation number 2, and there is the working. As you can see, our 10 is equivalent to 10, therefore we're satisfied the conditions of our equation. And then it's shown on the screen, we have another interesting scenario of these two equations. We've got 2/x minus 1/y, which is equals to 3 as your equation number 2. Moving on to 4/x minus 3y, which is equals to 16 as your equation number 2. And as usual, what you have to do is to study scenarios, and these two equations are occurring concurrently and can be solved instantaneously. Our fact is that they are similar in nature. Yeah, these are similar in nature. Given that the two are similar in nature, so what you have to do is to consider whether each of the terms containing the unknown variable is the multiple of another term. So let's just say, starting off with saying we're having to eliminate x. So what we are considering here is 4. Is 4 a multiple of 2? Yes, it is. So what we can now safely eliminate x from the equation. So in other words, what we have to do is, in equation 2, we're going to be multiplying all the terms of the equation by the factor of 4, which is a multiple there. And then what we have is shown on the board, is at the end of the day we have 4/x minus 2y, which is equals to 6, which is really desirable, because now we have got 4x, 4/x and 4/x both in equation 1 and number 2, so we can go ahead and eliminate x from our equation. And as shown on the board, you realize that your 1/y is equals to 16, therefore 1 is equals to your y is equals to 1/16. And then what you have to do on step number 4 is solve for the value of x using n of the equation. So we have picked up that equation, 4/x minus 3/y is equals to 14, and 4/x minus 3/1/16 is equals to 16. And one of the things that I would love for you to notice, specifically for the second term of our equation, you will see 1/16. So ideally what we are saying there is 3 divided by 1/16. So for the number that you are dividing with, like the 1/16, which is actually getting into 3, there's a rule that you invert, like what I have done there. So each time you encounter this kind of a problem, what you have to do is to invert it. You multiply, and then to do so, to get the correct answer, you invert. So at the end of the day, we are having 4/x minus 3/1 times 16/1, which is equals to 16. So if you work it out, you realize that your x should give you, if you get it correctly, your x should give you a value of 1/16. So in other words, we're having the same solutions for our x and y, which is equals to 1/16 and 1/16. And as usual, to be sure that we got the right, the problem right, what we do is we have to check, we have to prove that our left hand side is equivalent to the right hand side, and they were substituting for the values, and we've got 4/1/16 and minus 3/1/16, and what we have is 64 minus 48, and that gives us 16. Therefore 16 is equivalent to 16, and we have proven that our problem is correct. Now what we are facing is problem number 4, which is also quite interesting there. What we have is 3 to the power 2x minus y is equals to 1 is our equation number 2 as shown on the screen, and also having 16 to the power x over 4 is equals to 8 to the power 3x minus y is our equation number 2. And as usual, what we have to do is we're supposed to analyze what kind of the problem the above scenario is. That is scenario analysis. And this, as you can see, these are indices. We're talking of exponential functions. So what do we do at first? You will realize that 3 to the power 2x minus y is equals to 1 in that's our equation 1. In this equation, it is apparent that 3 is the base. Think of an integer, an exponent of the base, with which when computed the answer is 1. Rewrite the equation substituting for the value of the equation, and we know that any number to the power 0 should give you a 1. So in other words, the number that we are looking for here is 3. So we're gonna substitute in place of 1, we're gonna put 3 to the power 0, because we haven't changed anything. If you take 3 to the power 0, it's gonna give you number 1. So now that we have done that, the next thing that we need to do is to drop the bases, and then we remain with that equation, which is now easier to navigate. We are having 2x minus y, and what we are going to do also is we are going to analyze equation 2 in the same light as above. So we are having our 16 to the power x over 4 is equals to 8 to the power 3x minus y. This looks quite like a bit tricky and interesting, but there's really nothing at the end of the day. It's just about understanding the law of indices and the like. So what we're gonna start off by doing is analyzing the relationships of the terms that are there, that are specifically our bases. That is what's the relationship among 16, 4 and 18, and to find out what kind of relationship exists among those basis. What we're gonna do is we're going to express the terms as a product of their prime factors, and you realize that 16 is equals to 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and 8 is equals to 2 times 2 times 2, and then 4 is equals to 2 times 2. And you know that now these integers actually can be expressed having 2 as the base. So at the end of the day, this is the relationship among connecting these different terms. You realize that 16 is equals to 2 to the power 4, 8 is equals to 2 to the power 3, and 4 is equals to 2 to the power 2. So what we're gonna do now, because we have established the relationship which will make our problem easier, what we then need to do is to substitute those values into our equation number 2, and that is what we are going to do. So that's 2 to the power 4x over 2 to the power 2 is equals to 2 to the power 3 multiplied by 3x minus y, as you can see. And again, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be studying scenarios once again, and you can still see that we still have a fraction on our left hand side which is a constraint. And then what nature of problem is that it involves indices, and therefore we have to use the law of indices to clear off this kind of constraint. So as alluded to earlier on, whenever there is a divisor and its indices, and these are indices, what you have to do is you have to subtract. So at the end of the day, we've got 2 to the power 4x minus 2 to the power 2 is equals to 2 3 bracket 3x minus y. So as usual, we're gonna drop the problem now has the same number as the base. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop the number that is consistent throughout that's rather repeating itself throughout the terms of our expression, and that's 2. So at the end of the day, what we have is we've got 4x minus 2 is equals to 9x minus 3y as shown on the board. And once again, after having solved your problem, what you'll have at the end of the day is 5x minus 3y is equals to 2. And now, having given those scenarios, it is now easier for us to work out. As you will see, we are going to work out equation number 1 and equation number 2, and if you get that right, your x is supposed to be 2, and then after that you substitute for the value, substitute for y by, solve for y by substituting for the value of x, and then that is what you get, your 4. And then as usual, if you get the answer correctly, your right hand side is supposed to be equivalent to your left hand right side, and as a left hand side, and after having worked that, I'm sure that your 1, it should get to a situation whereby 1 is equivalent to 1, and you have solved the problem correctly. Now we have number 5, which is just there. It's not really complicated. It's a simple math, but there is 1 or 2 things that we can learn from this kind of problem. So you realize that your equation number 1 is 3x plus 2y is equals to 10, and equation number 2 is 6x plus y is equals to number 6. So the first thing that you have to do is that you're supposed to consider the non-variable that you intend to eliminate first, and then once you do that, consider the coefficients of the variable you want to eliminate. And what you then do is you find the lowest common multiple of the 2 coefficients. In this term, we're looking at for the equation standing as the factor of one of the coefficients, think of a number such that if you multiply it by the coefficient of the unknown, it translates to the lowest common multiple. Then you use the number to multiply with all the terms of the equation whose coefficient is the divisor of the 1. So here in this scenario, I want to eliminate x. You realize that 6 is the lowest common multiple of 6 and 3. So in other ways, to find the number by which we're supposed to multiply the first equation with, we're supposed to divide the smaller number into the number which is greater. So 6 divided by 3 gives you 2. So we are gonna be multiplying all the terms of equation number 1 by 2, and that should give you 6x plus 4y is equals to 20. And now you can go ahead and do the elimination to solve for the values that are not known.
Let's talk about, for instance, we're talking about photosynthesis, right? I want for us to pay attention. Brainstorming, what are the keywords as far as photosynthesis is concerned?
Science.
Yes. There we are. What else?
Water.
Water.
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide. Okay. What are the keywords? The way you brainstorm, what do you think is the keyword as far as the subject photosynthesis is concerned?
Leaves.
Okay, people are not just saying things in general. I think this is the way I would say the art of brainstorming. I would go back to the definition, and then I would come up with such words like autotrophs. I would come up with such words such as heterotrophs. Then I would come up with such words as producer. I'd come up with such words such as consumers. I'd come up with such words such as keywords as far as photosynthesis is concerned. I would think of transport. I am brainstorming because I've spoken of water. So if you are talking of water, it's supposed to be what? It's supposed to be transported. I would think in terms of what do you call it? I would think in terms of nutrition. And this nutrition, as you can see, then I start making a web of the interconnectedness of the concept that you are studying. Nutrients are linked to the issue of transport, And then what else would I think of? Because I've spoken of autotrophs, that is your producer. I'm talking about heterotrophs, that is your consumer. What else would you think in terms of photosynthesis? What is it closely related to? Another topic linked to photosynthesis, what is it?
Respiration.
Then I would think of respiration. You are brainstorming. Right now what you are doing is the art of brainstorming. And once you start doing these things, you're coming up with concepts. Then what would I do next? What is the other thing that I'm going to do? We're talking of photosynthesis, and there's no way you can brainstorm or remember and pass well without knowing the equations of photosynthesis. Okay, levels are different. For some of us who are doing biology, some of us are doing integrated science, but at the end of the day, it boils up to one thing. So I'll think of, I did biology, so I'll think of photosynthesis, then I'll think of, these are key things, and we're talking about key things. I'll think of what are known as raw materials. This is how you brainstorm. For photosynthesis to happen, I need a raw material. Then I would move on to the next thing. When a raw material, I would think of the process, right? The processing that happens. Then I write process. Then, after the process happens, what is useful to us? We call it the what? That is useful to the organism carrying out the process. What is it called? It's called a product. And what is the worst to the organism in question is what is known as what? Byproducts. For now, let's hold it. Let's continue. This is the concept of brainstorming. And now, we are all about teaching you the skills that you need in order to get the desired goal at the end of the day. You don't have a board. I am doing a presentation. I am a teacher. I use a board. What do you use for your brainstorming? These things are at your disposal. These things known as your sticky notes or whatever, they are not expensive. You just write down things, and then from time to time you'll be asking yourself questions like, okay, fine, as far as the producer is concerned, what does it do? How does it affect photosynthesis? As far as the consumer is concerned, what relationship does it have with photosynthesis? And the other thing that you have to know, like when you're learning a subject, and there's also something that is missing. For those who are doing biology, there's something that is missing. Enzymes. There's a reason as to why. So you find cases that what happens is when you are given a scenario, a question such as define photosynthesis, it's very easy for us to demonstrate. Okay, fine. Before I say anything, may someone try to give me a definition of photosynthesis? Then after that, someone defines photosynthesis according to their understanding, and the mark allocation is 3. Would like to give it a shot. Okay, yes, I'm waiting. Oh, yes, thank you. I thought that was a hand up.
Photosynthesis is a process whereby green plants manufacture their own food in the presence of sunlight to produce carbohydrates and oxygen.
Okay. Someone else? Someone else? Someone else would love to give it a shot? What is the term? Kuda? What is photosynthesis? It's a nature. And then we are done. Okay, who else wants to try? Okay, fine. Okay, so let's come to the other process that is related to photosynthesis, respiration. What's the equation for respiration? Plus what? Actually, I was trying to go back to that level, but I would love to go here. Say, respiration, what is it? Glucose plus. What do we have? What do we have at the end of the day? Carbon dioxide plus what? Plus water. Okay, fine. Wait, there's something that I want for us to pay particular attention to, right? Okay, fine. This is what is happening, right? So what I want for you to do is to try and come up with the relationship between photosynthesis and respiration, right? Last time we spoke of earlier on, right? We touched on the issue of raw materials. We touched on the issue of the process. We touched on the issue of what did we touch on? We touched on the issue of the process, and then we spoke of products, and we also spoke of what? Byproducts, right?
Yeah.
We want to identify them. Okay. The process here, when you come, our arrows here, they signify the process, right? So let's take it from photosynthesis. So we are trying to know what kind of a process is photosynthesis, right? Okay, so there are terms that are known as okay. If you are dealing with chemistry, you call it what? What was your expression? Endothermic. But now we are dealing with let's find a way of rounding this up. This is the process. It requires energy. The process for photosynthesis requires energy. But the process for respiration, it's what? It produces energy at the end of the day. Releases energy in the form of what? ATP. And also, if you noticed here, this is our, where are we? This is our raw materials, this side. Let's check them out as far as respiration is concerned. What are they? They are the products. Okay, let us look at the what you call the products of photosynthesis. They are the what? The raw materials for photosynthesis. A method that is used as far as education is concerned, which is known as instructional design in e-learning. What you are doing is you're coming up with the simulations. They're simulating real life situations. Because sometimes some of us in this side of the world, we have never seen a volcano because we haven't experienced such geopages. So what they do is coming up with these documentaries, the places where it is actually happening. Sometimes it's easier for a person who has been in areas affected by this to be able to understand the questions better. But if you are here trying to envision what this colliding of places is all about and everything that it takes, you don't know about it. So the best way to understand it is to go and look out for information, simulating or actually documentaries on what actually happens. Like for instance, you are studying on digestion. What happens in the inside of the human body is something that you don't see. So if you get animations showing exactly what is going on, it helps you to understand better. So it is one of the things that we do as as Net Library, providing
of Earth's hot and slowly churning mantle. Over time, colliding, breaking apart, and grinding against each other. To understand tectonics, scientists look back only 200 million years, because earlier geologic evidence has been either recycled or hidden by Earth's processes.
To appreciate the idea of continents moving, you have to step outside human timescales and think in terms of a completely different time frame. The continents here are drifting apart at 2 centimetres every year.